This reading from Affirmations for Self-Healing is on the topic of love. This morning's thought song will be on the topic, Perfect Love Casts Out Fear. It's often said perfect love casts out all fear. But anyway, we'll get into that. But this morning we're speaking of love. So the reading is, one finds love not by being loved, but by loving. We can never know love if we try to draw others to ourselves. Nor can we find it by centering our love in them. For love is infinite. It is never ours to create. We can only channel it from its source in infinity to all whom we meet. The more we forget ourselves in giving to others, the better we can understand what love really is. And the more we love as channels for God's love, the more we can understand that His is the one love in all the universe. And so the affirmation, we'll say it together, but let me just read it so you can know what it is. I will love others as extensions of my own self and of the love I feel from God. Please say it with me. I will love others as extensions of my own self and of the love I feel from God. I will love others as extensions of my own self and of the love I feel from God. I will love others as extensions of my own self and of the love I feel from God. Now a little louder. I will love others as extensions of my own self and of the love I feel from God. I will love others as extensions of my own self and of the love I feel from God. I will love others as extensions of my own self and of the love I feel from God. I will love others as extensions of my own self and of the love I feel from God. I will love others as extensions of my own self and of the love I feel from God. I will love others as extensions of my own self and of the love I feel from God. I will love others as extensions of my own self and of the love I feel from God. I will love others as extensions of my own self and of the love I feel from God. And now mentally, I will love others as extensions of my own self and of the love I feel from God. And now just listen to this prayer. O Infinite One, make me a channel for Thy love. Through me, reach out to sow seeds of love in barren hearts everywhere. So these readings, they're so beautiful that they stir something deep inside of us that makes us feel some longing, some nostalgia from a distant, distant past of who we truly were, of who we truly are. And yet somehow we're wrapped up in this world of confusion, in this world of pain, in this world of suffering, in this world of fear. And we're longing to know, how do we get back to that true state of feeling that we are true love? How do we learn to share love once again and not be afraid of, once we open our hearts to someone, that they might just come in and trample on our love? That we live in such fear these days, and we're wondering, how do we get back? How do we get back? So let's first pick up this topic this morning from fear. Of what is fear? That fear is when we are afraid that something might happen to us, that we fear the future, that we think that, oh, if this thing is taken away from me, then I won't be happy. And how do we overcome this fear? We're going to talk about that more later. But Sri Yukteswar, if you read in the autobiography of a yogi, his mother tried to scare him when he was a child. And his mother said that, oh, there's a ghost in this closet, don't go in there. And Sri Yukteswar, even though he was a child, like a military commander, said, let me in that door. Let me see that ghost. And we need to have that attitude in life. We need to have the attitude that nothing can make us afraid. That we too are like the greatest military commander ever. And that nothing can conquer us. Because that is who we are in our soul. That we are immortal. That we are the soul That when we identify with the body, we say, yes, the body can be hurt. And you look at little children, they run around, they skin their knees, they might even break their arm, and they cry, but they don't worry. They put the cast on, they'll be okay. But after years and years of feeling that suffering, of physical suffering, then we start to fear, I don't want to go in that fast automobile, or I don't want to take this little risk taking the trek up the mountain. What if something were to happen to me? And so how do we get back to that childlike innocence where we can live without fear? Well, let's do a little experiment right now. This is an experiment from Swami Kriyananda. I'm up here telling us how to get over fear, but I was a little afraid of this experiment itself. But after years of learning to attune myself to him, I saw the goodness in everything. So let's do this little experiment right now. Close your eyes, and I want you to visualize the absolute worst thing you can ever imagine that could happen to you. Take a few minutes, think about the scariest thing, then think, is there anything even scarier that you might have to face? The worst thing you could imagine ever happening to you. And now see that happening to you. And now think, now what? And you can open your eyes now. And then now what? You may have visualized death. Death is nothing. Death, we've done that already. Probably millions, certainly 8 million lifetimes when we were animals and plants and all of that. But we've probably done it millions of times in a human body. Nothing. Death is nothing. It's like falling asleep. There's much worse fears to have of our loved ones being taken away or of being tortured. Worse, terrible things can happen, but even worse than physical torture is mental torture, emotional torture, living in these emotional hells that we create for ourselves. But the point of this exercise is that whatever you visualized, it will change. You will get through it. You will pass. This too shall pass, that everything changes. All of the good, all of the bad, that it's constantly in flux. Now, I didn't do this visualization for years. Swami Kriyananda would say to do it, and I would think, oh my gosh, what if I'm going to attract that bad negative thing to myself by visualizing this thing, and then I'm actually going to have to experience it? That people say that to think is to create, and if I'm going to be thinking of these things, then I might be creating them. To think is not to create. And later this morning, as we get into the topic of love, we're going to talk about magnetism. But if you only think of things without the power of love behind that thought, you won't draw it to yourself. It's like taking an automobile and popping up the two tires, jacking up the car so that the tires aren't actually touching the ground. And you can press the accelerator, but the car will go nowhere. And so often we spin in our mind, but we don't know how to create like the gods that we actually are. And maybe this morning we'll talk a little bit about that, about the magnetic power and how to create and draw things to us. But anyways, the point here is that we get stuck in our minds with fear of thinking that this might happen, that might happen, and we can let that fear roll around so much that then it does begin to affect our heart. And then once that begins happening, then we live in this emotional state and we're paralyzed and we feel that we can't move. But we need to learn how to break those chains. And to break those chains, the solution is love. But in the reading this morning, what is love? Is love truly ours? And the reading says no. Love is not ours. That love exists eternally. That love is always there. And love is a force that draws things together. And hatred and ego is a force that divides and separates. And we want to learn how to draw things together. That in this world, we want to be channels of love so that we can bring groups of people together for good things. This is a very important point, that we need to learn to love people even when they don't like us. And as we grow spiritually, they're going to even hate us. But we have to learn how to love them. And the trick to that is to see that if someone makes a mistake, that let's say they do something wrong to you or just something wrong, whatever, even if it's not to you personally, is to separate that mistake from the person. Yes, the mistake was wrong. Yes, if they're willing to listen to your advice, you can tell them and have the courage to tell them it was wrong. But don't identify that person with the mistake. Otherwise, you won't be able to love people. You'll see that person, you'll think, he's done this, he's done that. You'll live in fear. He might do this to me again. Oh my gosh, I can't handle that. But if you see, yes, the mistake was made, but deep inside, there's a soul. There's a great soul, and I can love that soul no matter what. That Paramahansa Yogananda says a piano has 100 keys, and that a person might have one flaw, and it's like that piano having one wrong key, that all the 99 keys sound good, but then that one sounds not nice. And you say, but you don't say, oh, the entire piano's bad, throw it away. You say, it's all right, it just has that one bad key. So why can't we look at human beings that way also and say, it's all right. There's only that one bad key, but we can just learn to ignore that. If they'll take our advice, we give the advice and help them change. If they won't, we just ignore that one bad key, and we keep positively giving that love, giving that positive encouragement to all the 99 good keys. There was an ashram somewhere in India, I don't know where, I don't know who the head man was in this ashram. But every once in a while, a certain man would come in very negative, very critical. Just come in and say, this is wrong with your ashram, and you're wrong, and why do you always do that? What a terrible person over there. And he'd wander around for a few minutes and get the devotees all emotional and riled up. And then he would leave. And the head man in that ashram, he would always just take it calmly and know that negativity, fear, that it doesn't have a binding force like love, and that soon it will dissipate. We just need to have a little bit of patience. This perfect love that casts out fear is that patience, is seeing that fear doesn't have a cohesive force. The negative side doesn't have a cohesive force. It will soon go, and we just patiently, it comes and it goes. We let it go. Anyway, back into that ashram there in India. So this man would come and go every once in a while. And it's good every once in a while to have a man like this in the ashram. That Saint Teresa of Avila, there was one nun in one of her convents, and she was very negative. And all the other nuns would say, can't we just get her out of here? Can't we ask her to leave? And Saint Teresa said, oh no, that if we didn't have one like her, that we'd have to go out and find one so that we can learn how to love perfectly like this. So that negative man that would come in the ashram, one day they didn't see him, and he hadn't come in a long time. And then finally news came that that man had died. And most of the inmates in the ashram, they were, whew, okay, he's never coming back again. And they told the head man of the ashram that that negative fellow, we don't have to worry about him anymore. He's not coming back, he's passed away. And the head man started crying. He said, my best friend has died. They said, what do you mean your best friend? He was your biggest critic. He was your biggest enemy. And the head man said, he was the only one who had the courage to tell me the truth. And that I was able to change myself, because whatever he would say, even though it came in a very negative way, that I would always look and analyze myself and see, is there truth in what he says, even though it comes in such a harsh way? Is there truth in what he says? And then I would change myself, if so, that nobody else had the courage to tell me. And so let's look at all of life. That if we have family members that are hard to deal with, let's just ask ourselves impersonally, without our emotions getting involved, is this person telling the truth? And if so, let's have the courage to stand up and change ourselves. Speaking of courage reminds me of Gandhi, and it reminds me of another story of perfect love. That Gandhi, when he lived in South Africa, that he was running to catch the train one time, and in that jumping on the train, one of his chappals was left behind. And that he was on the train, and he had one chappal, and the train was leaving, and immediately he took this chappal and he threw it to his other chappal. And I just love that story, because that's who he truly was. He wasn't thinking about his ego. He wasn't thinking about himself and letting his energy fall. Oh, darn it. Now I only have one chappal. Immediately, he was thinking of the other human being that would find that chappal. That he was thinking of the man that had less than him. And that's true love. That we need to get out of ourselves and think, what's in it for me? What do I get out of this? That we have to think, what about the other person? What about the person that has less than me? That there's always people that have less than us. And if we're constantly thinking of them, then God will bring what we need into our lives. It's the same with love as it is with money. that if we're just looking at the inflow and sitting there and praying to God, oh God, why don't you give me more? Oh God, please give me more. Oh God, all my problems will be solved if you just bring in more money. And you're looking only at the beginning of that pipe and wondering, why is God, doesn't he love me? Doesn't he love me? When you look at the other side of the pipe and say, where's all of this going? How can I use the money that I have now to help other people? How can I use the money that I have now to build my business? Which means giving more money to the employees in there and helping them raise to their own potential. Which means serving your customers when they come and not just looking at them as money bags that are going to fill your pockets, but asking yourself, how can I be a channel for love in my business to every customer that comes in the door? When you act responsibly with what God has given you, then the other side of that pipe, it magically opens up, and a tremendous amount of wealth will come to you if that's what you want in this incarnation. And it's the exact same way with love. That as we begin to look at this world and not say, oh, what do I need? Oh, why does nobody love me? Oh, poor little old me. That when we begin to look and say, how can I help that person? How when I'm in maybe at some social gathering and there's that one person who's just sitting in the corner, what can I go say to help uplift him today? How can I make him feel better? How can I make him feel included? When we have that kind of love, then that God will pour love into us. And this feeling, it's an overwhelming feeling, but I want to get into talking about the feelings today. I was in a taxi somewhere in India a few years ago, I don't know, and I heard this song, My Dill Goes, has anybody here heard that song? My Dill Goes, and I thought, oh, and it was a catchy song, and it stuck. But the thing here is that we don't want our heart, our dill, to go up and down and over here and over there. That in the beginning it makes us feel alive. And we have these human relationships where we're feeling this love and we feel so good. But if our heart is emotional like that and going up and going down and hither, thither, that there's always, for every up, there's going to be a down. And we need to not get confused between devotion, between pure love, and between these emotional heart's feelings that can get a little bit wild. It's a very, very important distinction to make, because you see how we've fallen in this trap that I was talking about in the beginning is we have confused love for desire. And so we keep thinking that, oh, once I have this desire, once I fulfill it, that then I'm going to be happy. And we fulfill that desire. And then as soon as that desire is fulfilled, earlier just we were talking about money. Perhaps we put a lot of money in the bank. I know people that have lots of money in the bank. And now I look at them and they say, I'm so afraid. What if this person takes my money? I'm afraid to use this credit card, that it has this many lacks on it. What if someone starts stealing and I don't know what to do? And suddenly that thing they desired so much has turned into this nightmare of fear, that they now don't know what to do with it. And it's not just money, it's everything. That our personal relationships, this can happen with them. That things in our life, other items, that we can buy a big house, but then we're worried, what if it goes away? What if there's an earthquake? We get a nice car, and then it gets banged, and then we're upset, or we live in fear that someone might steal it. And so the point here is that fulfilling our desires is confusion. That it is not true love, that this is the grand fall that the soul has taken down into this world of matter, down into the world of desires, thinking that when I get this, I'm going to be happy. But there's a chant that I love to play. I don't play it often because it's a complicated long one, but I'll give you the first and the last line. The first line is, desire, my great enemy. And we need to meditate on that line of why is desire our great enemy. And then the last line is, you won't have to fear anything anymore. And you see, there's one coin. One side of that coin is desire. The other side of that coin is fear. And that we live constantly shuffling back and forth between desire and between fear. And these have nothing to do with pure love. That pure love actually is stillness, that it's quietness, that pure love is a recognition on a soul level that we already have everything that we need. Pure love is perfect childlike trust in God, in the Guru, that he is going to provide everything that we need when we need it. We need to cultivate that trust. We need to cultivate this pure love. It's perfectly right to ask God, to pray for more devotion. That devotion is what we need. That as we gain more devotion, we gain that childlike trust in God, and we see that God is giving us what we need when we need it. I may have said this last Sunday, I don't remember. But a little while ago I was in a taxi in Kolkata, and I was just thinking on all the pain, all the suffering I'd had in my life, every single challenge. And I became so grateful that God gave those challenges just in the right way. Just had He given the bigger challenges first, it would have crushed me, it would have killed me. But He gave smaller challenges, and then bigger ones, and then bigger ones. And pure love, true love here, helps us be grateful for every negative thing, for every challenge, for seeing that it's God who's put these challenges in our life for a reason. Not because He's not there, not because He doesn't care, not that He doesn't know what's going on. Pure love knows that God knows. Pure love trusts and sees that God is giving us these things so that we can grow, so that we can grow back into perfect love, so that when someone starts slapping us and beating us, that instead of slapping back, 2 kicks instead of 1, that we give pure love instead, and we say, I know I'm not this body. You can crucify this body. Doesn't matter to me that I still give you pure love, because I know who's in there behind that. That you might be manifesting that satanic force, but it's just temporary. That's not who you truly are. That I know that God's behind there testing me in this form, and that I'm going to pass these tests. So in life, we need to keep our heart open. When your heart's open, when you're living in that state, you have everything. You have absolutely everything. When your heart starts closing down because life starts giving you these beatings and you don't know how to react and you don't know what to do, and so your heart starts closing down, you have nothing. Nothing. So pray for love. Pray for God to give you that feeling of oneness, that feeling that everything's okay. And pray for more and more love. That once in Paramahansa Yogananda's ashram, there was a man, and I believe he was just rolling around on the floor. And one of the other monks was looking and saying, Master, maybe you should discipline this guy, that his love has kind of gotten a little bit out of hand here. And Master said, no, dance for God. Roll around on the floor for God. Cultivate that devotion. Get that devotion going. Because devotion in the end, and I'll read at the end of this talk from the Gita, devotion is everything. That without it, you can't take one step on the path. That devotion is that feeling that you want God to come into your life. So what is the purpose of love? That love is an attractive force. It draws things. But divine love, not this desires, the thing that wants desires, not the emotions that are wild, but this perfect love we're talking today, that the purpose of it, the reason God put that in your heart is so that you can draw God. And last week we said God is bliss. God is joy. What does your heart truly want? It wants joy. But you have to open it up. You have to consciously draw on God. And so I said I'm going to talk a little bit about magnetism. Let's talk about it. That magnetism, it is a real force, but it's a very subtle force. Yes, we can go into the physics lab in 10th standard or whatever it is. We can get the little piece of loha and we drop the little filings on there and we see that, okay, that's magnetism. And you might be raised in the scientific background, and then when spiritual people try to tell you about magnetism, you think, they don't know anything. I've seen that magnet. I did the experiment in 10th standard. But no. When the gurus talk about magnetism, when a great saint like Swami Kriyanandaji talks about magnetism, they're talking about very subtle forces that control the whole world. And we should listen to these. We should try to understand these very subtle forces. Because every saint of every religion says God is love, that the entire universe is made from love. But we don't understand those words. We say, how is love going to pay my child's college tuition in 2 years? And we're living in fear, thinking, I have to get this thing paid. What am I going to do to get more money that it has to get paid? First step, don't live in fear. Live in joy. Now, is love itself going to pay those bills? No, it's not. That you have to do the work. Love directly is not going to do it. But by attuning yourself to that higher power, that subtle force, and asking yourself and living in that higher magnetism, in that higher belief and faith that God is going to show you how to take the next step, then living in that state, yes, the money will come. But you do have to take every step so that we can learn our lessons down here. So magnetism, in love, it is an attractive force, that we can draw to ourselves whatever we want by understanding how to combine the mind with that feeling to create magnetism and draw. That you can spin your mind without any feelings and it won't do the work. Or your emotions can be restless all over here and your mind can't even focus at all and it's thinking about that and you won't have that magnetic force. But when you get your mind and your heart together and you can really concentrate on something with your mind and your heart at the same time, you can learn how to draw to yourself whatever it is that you want. And again, be very, very careful. Think deeply, what is it that you want? Because you might pray and pray for something and you think it's exactly what you want, but it might not be good for you at all. And sometimes our prayers aren't answered because God loves us very, very, very much. And He knows exactly what He's doing. And sometimes He keeps things from us because they wouldn't be the good thing for us. But as we grow spiritually, we can draw whatever we want. And so we have to learn what is it that we want. But as you reach the pinnacle of spirituality, you won't want anything whatsoever. All you will want is to bring other people to God. And what happens to your physical body, you won't care one bit. What even happens to your emotions, if people abuse you emotionally, it's all right. Because your beloved is in there, in the deepest point in your heart, and nothing can touch that. People can criticize you, they can beat you, they can do whatever. But inside, with your beloved Guru, you have everything. So let me finish about magnetism, then we'll go on to friendship and the relationship with the Guru. There's another side to magnetism, the flip side of love, and that is hatred, and that it is a repulsive force. Now, fear is a mental state of thinking, what if this happens? What if this happens in the future? What if I get this in the future? What if this is taken away from me? And it's an emotional state that can make us not feel nice. But hatred is the opposite side of this magnetism of love, and it pushes things away. However, this is the point I wanted to make this morning in magnetism, that if there's a reciprocity, that if you hate someone and he hates you, instead of that being a repulsive force, it's going to attract you together. And suddenly the exact thing you didn't want to happen is going on. Or suddenly the exact person that of all the 7 billion people on the planet, why did this person come to me? Because there's the reciprocity of that hatred. And so though even normally it pushes apart, now it pulls together. And so if you hate someone deeply, work it out in this incarnation. Learn how to love them. Because if you don't work it out in this incarnation, that you could be born in the same family, that hatred can pull you back together, and you could be born and that man might be your father in next incarnation, and you'll be living in the same house for 30, 40, 50 years, learning how to work it out, learning how to develop this perfect love. We don't want that. We may as well figure out how to work it out right now and learn how to love perfectly right now. So all of these emotions that are in your heart, pay attention to them. Listen to your heart. Learn how to listen to your heart. And then learn how to purify your heart so that it can give that perfect love and radiate out that perfect love. Now I wanted to speak a little bit about friendship, about the different kinds of relationships that we have in this world. That when we say these prayers in the beginning, that we say, Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, Friend, Beloved. And each of these are different outward relationships that we have in the world. That we have our mother. We have a very special relationship with our mother, each one of us. And because mother gives love. Sometimes our mothers aren't perfect, but even still I've heard a saying that many bad sons that there have been in this world, but never a bad mother. Because that love that a mother channels, that it's pure and that it's perfect. And so this is one type of relationship that we learn to have in this physical world, and that we want to. This is a strange story that came in my head, but there was a man who was born with half a foot, or a club foot. And he asked his guru, he had to limp around that entire incarnation, couldn't function normally as a human being. He asked his guru, why was I born with this? And his guru said, it's because you kicked your mother in a past incarnation. And that we should of course we have to learn how to love our mother. And not, sometimes people have these negative thoughts in their mind. We don't even want to harbor these things. That even if our own mother does something bad, who cares? She's your mother. That you need to learn how to love and take care of her absolutely no matter what. And eventually we need to see everyone as our mother that's just trying to help us and take care of us. So these little human relationships, any little flaw that's in it, fix that flaw. Go within yourself. Learn how to love perfectly everyone. And then the father relationship normally isn't based so much on love. That it's based more on discipline, that it's based more on the intellect, that it's based on telling you what to do, and I don't care if you like it, that you better go do it anyways. And that we need to learn, well, first of all, we can't approach God in either way, but that discipline, we need to learn how to have that within ourselves. We need to seek out those masculine figures in our lives who are wise, who have that pure discrimination. Because if we are in our hearts still and they're emotional, that we can't reason clearly, and we can't know which is the right path to take. And before God, all of us are female, and we are seeking out that light of God, that perfect discrimination from God. But this also can be embodied, that the Guru embodies that perfect wisdom, that perfect love. And so we should seek out higher and higher channels for this, and we should learn how to love God in all of his different forms. And then the next in that prayer is friend. And this is the whole reason that I was talking on this little topic here, is that we need to learn how to approach God as a friend. And in the world, the relationship as mother, it carries a little bit of personal attachment, and attachment is the thing that is messing everything up here. That just in that family love, the familial love, that there's some kinds of attachment, and it's just the way God made it, and it's okay. But friendship, it carries no expectations. That perfect friendship is really the highest relationship that we can share with people. Because in your friend, you don't command them or expect that they have to do this. In your son, you would. That you would expect that he goes to school. You're going to expect that he gets good marks because you know what's good for him, what's going to happen in life. God put you in that position, fine. But in friendship, you begin to say, well, if it's what you want, it's all right. And I expect nothing from you. And friendship, it gets to the point of this topic. It's how we cultivate perfect love. By just seeing what we can give to friends, expecting nothing in return, by only wishing in our hearts their highest good, and if they do something wrong, learning how to forgive and preserving that friendship and cultivate those friendships. Just like a 9-stone bangle with all the shining gems that have several close friends. Make those friendships go on to the end of this incarnation. Learn how to love those friends impersonally and perfectly. That those friendships, you don't just make a friend in one incarnation. That if you meet someone and you feel something close to them, that it's because you've been cultivating that in a past lifetime. And so don't let these friendships go. Cultivate them. What you're actually cultivating is this perfect love that casts out fear. And you're cultivating this perfect love for God. So I need to wrap up here, but the last point here that needs to be made before I read these few stanzas out of the Gita is that this perfect love, this is the relationship, this perfect friendship with the Guru. Sorry, one more thing I want to interject. That with my own personal father, in the beginning our relationship in this lifetime was father-son. Of course, the son respects his father, learns from the father. But as we both get older, our relationship is maturing into friend and friend. And we easily see that he could incarnate next incarnation. We pray he has a long incarnation left, but he could leave this planet in a few years, and he'll be right back. And then we wouldn't share that father-son relationship, but we would still share that friendship. That friendship is eternal. Love is eternal. And this eternal love, when you feel that eternal love, when you know that God loves you forever and ever, no matter what, and that you've always been protected and you always will be, and when you can channel that perfected feeling of love, you absolutely have nothing to fear anymore. But these are words that I'm telling you, you have to feel it. And you have to find a true guru. You have to find a saint who will come into your life. And if you pray for it, God will bring that saint into your life. That he's just asking for you to bring him into your life in a personified form. The Guru is joy personified. The Guru is perfect love personified. And then it's our job when we meet these saints, when we get a true Guru, in order to see, now how do we develop this perfect relationship? And the Guru-disciple relationship, just like these friendships, has been developing over many, many, many incarnations. And we have to respect this relationship, that we have to give it energy, that we have to constantly look like that head man in the ashram. If something's being said, if I've done something wrong here, it's not easy to look at ourselves and see where we've made mistakes. But analyze yourself every day when you go to bed at night. Think about your day. Think about when you had pain and suffering. What causes that pain? Attachment causes that pain. And if we can let go of all those different attachments and just merge back into that feeling, into that sea of pure love, pure bliss, then we have nothing to fear, and then we attract. So the last point is reciprocity. That if we desire to know true love, that we have to receive it. We have to receive it from the Guru. We have to be open to receive it, and we have to give it. And that magnetism, this highest flow of love, that pure love is dynamic, that it's always changing, it's always flowing, seeing what little nook and cranny into the darkness of this world that it can go into and bring the light and uplift and expand all souls. So be a channel for that. Be a channel for the Guru. Bring that love and joy more into your life. Now I'm going to read from the Gita because we talk so much about love is oneness. It's a feeling, this oneness with all of life. And how do we get to that oneness? And Krishna and Arjuna are talking about this in the 12th chapter. And so I'll read the first stanza, I think, through the 5th stanza. So let's see if we can find it. It's a very interesting point. It's something to meditate on deeply. Yes, it's a very important point. So this is chapter 12, the first stanza through the 5th stanza that I am going to read. Arjuna said, "Between those who worship you with steadfast devotion and those who concentrate on the Absolute, which is better versed in the yoga science?" The blessed Lord answered, "Those who, with minds fixed on me, are ever united to me in pure devotion, are in my eyes the best versed in yoga. Those, however, who aspire to the indestructible, the indescribable, the unmanifested, the all-pervading, the incomprehensible, the immutable, above all vibration, who have subjugated the senses, are even-minded, and devote themselves to the well-being of all, verily, they too attain me. Those who make the unmanifested their primary goal make the path more difficult for themselves. Arduous for embodied beings is that path. That just trying to merge yourself into the infinite, it's a very difficult way. But going the path of bhakti, the path of love, of this perfect love, it becomes very easy.